probably earlier than most real meetings start, but today it's Chris Whittaker's day of sort of organizing and organizing what we're doing. So I'm going to pass it over to Chris really quickly so that he can shape the direction that we're going. And welcome all, and thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Liz. Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Whittaker. I teach physics at Dawson College, but I also coordinate the Dawson Active Learning Community. And we've been having a number of meetings since our classes ended to try and get a sense of what the semester was like, what worked, what didn't work, what we need to do to make things a bit better for the fall. And I liked yesterday during the meeting, Jim I think captured it really well by saying, you know, this semester we survived. Next semester we hope to strive to be better, but you know, eventually we want to thrive and make this, you know, turn what is this forced situation on us into a positive in terms of active learning. So that's, I think we're looking right now at least at taking a bit of a look back to see what has worked in terms of the technologies. So that's today's mission, is to look at what technologies we've used. And I think as I was saying yesterday, you know, each institution has taken slightly different approaches and used different platforms and technologies in this present situation, but we might have a chance, you know, we've all been thinking and hoping or wondering if the technologies could do something different or more. And so this is a chance for us, I think, to explore that. So we're going to do a lot of exchanging today. And given the size of the group, I'm thinking we should break out into some breakout rooms, but I have a little activity for us to do before we do that. So thanks for coming. Hope this turns out to be productive for you in moving forward. Liz, did you want to say something more?
No, I was going to let you do the heavy lifting.
All right.
Jim will be joining us shortly, I believe, as well.
So in the
Can I just say something, Chris?
Sure.
Hi, wait, let me start my video. So if you wish to ask anything, let's try to use the raise hand button. I don't know if you all know how to use it, so it makes it easier for us to control who wants to ask something.
So to do that, you need to open your participants list. And then in the bottom of the participants list, you should see a raise hand symbol at the bottom left.
And you can lower hand as well if you want. Okay, that was all. Thanks.
Good. And we're recording this too, right?
Yes.
So so that we're able to share this with people who can't be with us today, we are recording this. If that's a problem for you, you can always message one of the hosts through the chat. But you can also feel free to keep your camera off, and you can also change your name. So your name doesn't have to appear if you don't want it to. So let's get going then. I've put into the chat a link. If you can open that link, it'll take you to a web browser. And what I'd like us to do is the web browser will allow you to create these 75 character notes that I'm going to put onto a span canvas. It's a cloud-based platform that we can share ideas and populate the canvas. I'll show you in a second. But if I could get you to click on that link, there you go. Click on that link and type in the technologies. Each note, make a note for each specific technology that you've used. So if you use Zoom this semester, type in Zoom. But before you start doing too much, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to color code your notes. So the technologies that you found really, really good, can you put in green? The ones that you found were good, but had some limitations or could be better, can you put in yellow? The ones that you used that you didn't like, please put it in red. And again, you can choose different tones if you want to go between those three, but just start, what you do is you type in your text. You should see a little icon at the bottom that looks like an airplane, paper airplane. Click on that. It'll then go to a holding, or should appear, sorry, on the span canvas. And then you can repeat that process as many times as you like. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that.
Chris, it's not letting me type.
What browser are you on? Forgot. What's
Chrome.
that?
Chrome.
Oh,
Chrome.
Google Chrome should be okay.
I know, and it's weird.
Yeah, Firefox is not one that works well, so it has to be Chrome or Safari. Val, what we'll do is we'll bring up the full page. So if you still can't, you can tell me a couple and I can put them on. But right now, there are lots of things happening.
Chris, are we not just the URL, but also what we liked about it, or what would the marching orders?
No, at this point, not. There's not enough room.
Just the name of it.
Just the name, yeah.
Okay.
Zoom is appearing 1 billion times already. I'm just trying to organize things. So what I'll do is I'll share my screen now so that you see what I am seeing. You can still populate the span canvas. So these are all the notes that you're putting up. And what I'm doing so far is I'm trying to take all the zooms and I'm putting them over in the bottom right-hand corner, left-hand corner, because there are so many of them. I might actually have to, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take the yellow ones, put them over here. So keep populating. Oops.
Whitaker, do you want to give me access to that so I can help you?
Yeah. Hang on. Thanks, Chris. Val, I could share with you the actual page and you could do the same. You could just go straight in. Okay, so the two of you should have access. So what I'd like to do is, based on this artifact, is just start to have a conversation about what's working, what's not working, the red ones, and move the conversation towards something that will allow us to make decisions for the coming semester.
Which, what canvas is it called?
Right now it's just an untitled. So I shared, if you see one that is there and untitled, do you want me to name it? I don't know if it'll.
No, it's good, I got it.
Awesome. So you can see what I'm doing, Chris. Just if you can help by moving them around, that would be good. All right. So hopefully there are things there that you are recognizing. Can everyone see the canvas okay? Is the size of it all right? Just going to zoom out a little bit so that you can see it larger. You probably can't read the text at this point. But if you can't see it, please put something up in the chat. So there are some things that I think we all kind of have a shared understanding of. We all understand Zoom, Moodle. I think those are ones, but there are some that are not at least clear to me. So if I can get some people who have put things up into the canvas to clarify some things. So maybe first we could get somebody to clarify what My Daylight is. If you've come to SALTISE conferences before, you've heard talk of My Daylight, but maybe someone can just someone who's used My Daylight can give a quick description.
Okay. Well, you're gonna make me talk, Chris. So okay.
Good.
My daylight is at its core is sort of a question system in which you propose a question to the students. They sort of select their answer of the multiple choices that you give them, and then they're engaged in a virtual conversation with somebody else who's answered that question before, and actually you get a couple of different types of responses with the rationales that other students have put in, and then you're asked to re-vote again. And at its heart, it was sort of trying to replicate that the peer instruction that Eric Mazur talks about with the clickers, where you have the students first answer and then have an argument amongst their peers amongst their immediate neighborhood, and then you re-vote again. It does some more interesting things as well. My Daylight has gone into a few other things, including doing clicker-like functionality. But the other question types are coming up with sort of just rationale only without the multiple choice. But at its heart, it's really this, you do a multiple choice, you answer a multiple choice question twice after being sort of challenged by examining responses that agree with your choice and other responses that disagree with your choice. I don't have anybody would like to add.
So it's essentially asynchronous peer instruction through an online in an online environment. Could I get someone? I mean, there's a bunch of other things here. Mayo is I don't know if you use Mayo at university, but Mayo is an internal emailing messaging system that colleges have. What about, there are some other ones that I don't recognize or that I recognize a little bit. So Slack, can someone describe what Slack is?
It's a collaborative messaging space. It allows for you to create sub-conferences and threads. There's sort of a similar functionality in MS Teams. But it's okay. It allows for some good manipulation of thread, and it's very condensed, so it's able to look at an entire conversation very compactly. I liked it.
Okay. For your information, right now we are in something called a Nareva span space. So this is Nareva is a Canadian company that was an offshoot of Smart Technologies when Smart Technologies was bought out. And so Nareva is this online environment where you can assemble, categorize, organize, process, and create artifacts of knowledge that can be really quite powerful. If people want, we can show some of those through this session. H5P is one that's come up in our sessions, our active learning sessions. Can someone describe what H5P is?
It's a plugin for Moodle that allows you to make, I would guess, containers for multimedia assets that you can then encapsulate with a quiz type activity.
Okay.
Sorry, I can add something to that too.
Good. Hey, Carmen.
Hi. For H5P, the way I use it is that you can create interactive videos for your students. So you can do asynchronous teaching this way, prepare a narrated lecture of some sort, or find YouTube videos, whatever MP4 file you have, and then you can insert various types of questions so that students would have to answer a question and get it correct before they can proceed to watch the rest of the videos. So nice way to keep the students engaged.
So for those of you familiar with in physics, there's a whole set of research based on these interactive lecture demonstrations, and there's a lot of good data to show that doing demonstrations in a science class is largely ineffectual unless you engage students in a process of predicting and then contrasting and comparing their predictions with what actually happens in the demonstration or in the activity. And so that's what H5P kind of allows you to do in an asynchronous way. If any of you have, so I'm trying to sort things a little bit in terms of, there's a bunch of Google things. I'm assuming most of us understand what Google or are at least vaguely aware of Google Suite technologies, but there's another couple that are up here that are not. We talked about Moodle, but there's Poodle as well. Can someone talk about what Poodle is?
Yes, I can do it. My name is Philippe Gagny. So Poodle is a module that comes into Moodle that allows students and teachers to record videos. So a couple of minutes of video. So you don't need to manage files, video files. Students just click on record and it's already into the system. And you can give oral feedback with Poodle too. That's it.
Great, thanks. There's Discord. Discord has come up in a couple of conversations that I've been in, and I had to look it up this morning. But does anybody want to just describe what Discord is?
Discord is very similar to Slack. It's more for the gaming crowd, but it basically allows you to have conversations and group them in some teams and that sort of thing. And it's fun, you win some, more you're active there, you get to a higher and higher level.
So it's gamified a little bit?
Yeah, it's for gamers essentially, but it's a very small thing, and so it doesn't take much space on your computer, it doesn't take much bandwidth either. And
right,
that's one of the reasons why young people like it.
And there are, from what I understand, there are multiple ways for conversations to happen. They can happen through chats, through audio, through video.
Yeah.
And it looks easy to organize and to set up.
Yeah, it's very easy. Yeah.
Okay, good. I see other things that I don't know about. I think
There are a
crowd.
couple of raised hands, by the way. There's Valerie Simmons and Tanya.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, this is Tanya. I just wanted to add that a lot of the students love Discord, and as a graphic teacher, it was really simple and easy to use, and to share whatever, any kind of visual. Also to do everything basically that MS Teams or Zoom does, but we had higher attendance on our Discord classes because the students liked hanging out on Discord and in their spare time gaming as well.
I've heard that as well from a number of people. In fact, when I co-coordinate a community of students enriched in what's called enriched science, and we asked the students, you know, how are you guys communicating together as a group, because they're quite a tight-knit group, and they mentioned Discord. Okay, so there are other ones.
And sorry, Chris, there was also Valerie Simmons.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, it's okay. It was from a while ago. No worries. Carry on, Chris.
Okay. So there are a couple of other things that are catching my eye that I don't know. So I don't know if I'm pronouncing it properly, but Yuja, the Y-U-J-A, can someone explain what that is?
Yeah, I can explain it a little bit. Maybe it is called Yuja, but we're not quite sure about it. Generally, it's a tool for video captioning. Professors can record their courses and then upload the file to Moodle, for example, so that students can conduct this asynchronous activity before class or after class as a review or something like that.
Good, thank you. What about Nearpod? Who put up Nearpod?
I did, sorry.
What's that, Jim?
Yeah, I put that up. I've seen it a bunch. It is a pretty cool way of creating dynamic, interactive presentations where students can mark up your slides and you can bring up their homework to your screen. People that use Nearpod become in love with Nearpod. I haven't actually used it in my teaching, but I've been pretty impressed as a student using it. Very powerful, like groupware that you could, in principle, design activities like this one or like any kind of knowledge building could be done. But it's basically like PowerPoint on social steroids.
That one's a neat one. I just moved it closer to Perusall because that seems to share some of the characteristics of Perusall. So Perusall is an online environment where students can work together in groups and teams to mark up a PDF document. A lot of the textbooks are available on Perusall, so you can buy your textbook through Perusall, and then the students mark up the text, highlight the parts that they're having difficulty with, put comments. They can help each other solve each other's difficulties or learning difficulties with the material. Is that what Nearpod sounds like or looks like, Jim? But sounds like it does more than that.
Yeah, I think Nearpod's more like PowerPoint. It's you as the master of ceremonies pushing things out to the students, displaying them in real time up front, and the students are, it's a more of a real time audience participation thing, and you can highlight it in a particular student work. We've used it for one research study. Your thing actually reminds me a bit of like Hypothesis Perusall, like, or I use Google Drive for that. I have folders where I put PDFs in them just in Google Drive. And then all the kids read the reading and they use the annotation tool from Google Drive and they just mark it up. I think that's a really cool. that social annotation is a really cool function.
The nice thing about Perusall, and Perusall is a product out of Eric Mazur's group at Harvard, is that you can assign grading rubrics to students who post and answer other students' posts, and you can have them do a minimum number of posts, reply to other students' posts. So it has some nice things in it that allow a teacher, gives the teacher some tools to assess and give grades for that. I know Carmen has done a lot of work on Perusall amongst other people, but yeah. So moving on, there's also CrowdMark. I think CrowdMark came up yesterday in our discussion. I think it was Jasmine. Were you bringing up CrowdMark?
Hi, yeah, I brought it up yesterday and I put it on the canvas. So CrowdMark was used by Dr. Claire Trottier in our class that was, we had 309 students, and it was used for the final exam, which was done remotely, and it was open book. So I was a TA for that class, so it's coming from how easy it was to mark those exams. So students would upload their answers and their drawings on CrowdMark, and the TAs, what we would do is we already had a rubric that was made. So if it was 9 out of 10, we already had a feedback, a comment associated with the grade. And when we were correcting, so for example, I was in charge of question 3, I can easily just type in 9 out of 10, and then the comment would right away show up. And I could also see how many people got this question, how many people got 10 out of 10 for this question, or how many people did poorly. And if I wanted to change my grading, if I wanted to grade a little easier or not, it was very easy to filter. And we can also keep track of TA hours, which I know is a huge discussion and kind of a situation, at least in our department, determining how many hours we should give the TAs for remote teaching. So we can keep track of that. It's easy to mark. It's also very easy to see as educators what the grades are, how many people got what question wrong, if we need to omit a question or not. And it's easy to export the data and provide it to the students. I don't know if that was clear.
That's great. Thanks. The other one that I don't know that is up there is NetboardMe.
I can speak to that, Chris. So it's kind of like Padlet, but it's rather more advanced and it's free. It allows students or teachers to post content and also annotate the content. So if you want students to curate or explain why they're sharing something, they can do that on top of the post. And then other students can comment. There's a comment feature and there's a vote feature. And unlike Padlet that requires you to pay to have a classroom environment, Netboard has a classroom environment that's free. So students can create their own boards. They can be put into groups to create their own boards. They can share each other's boards and give feedback on them. I'll just put a link down below to a sample Netboard. So it's in the chat.
Great, thank you. So we don't need to go through all of the things. I'm just going to scroll over to some of the yellow ones. Thanks, Roderick, for organizing these, if that's your work in the background.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, sir. So these are ones that are mixed, and there are some duplicates, right? So hang on, sorry to cause any dizziness when moving it around. So there are a couple of ones there that I know. Does anybody have, I don't want to spend a lot of time on these ones unless there are aspects of these platforms that we find particularly appealing that we wish we could find elsewhere. Can I just open the floor up to people who have comments about the ones that are on your screen now in yellow or orange, are there any particular aspects of these that you wouldn't want to lose, or does anybody have any suggestions for how some of them can be used in ways that are less problematic or that have less drawbacks? Any comments on those? Put your hand up, we'll find you, I think. So Captain Proton, Mike?
Yeah, hi. So I mean, I see a couple of things here, and I was one who put up Lon Kappa, and that, but I would say probably is web work, for web work as well, mastering physics. These things are really good at the little slice of thing that they do. I would argue is just that it's not something that you would necessarily want to build your entire course around. I can say that particularly for Long Cap, of what it does extremely well, but it's a very limited part of a curriculum or a set of activities that I would use. So I don't know if that's what the criteria are for sort of this sort of mixed in that case. But that was why I put, when I put Long Cap, it was like that, and I can, knowing that is sort of very closely related to web work and mastering.
Right.
That may be something there that these, of course, is also sort of very these are tools that are somewhat domain really domain specific, like
right.
So
and mastering is associated with a particular publisher of some of the textbooks, so they're narrow in that sense. Any so Chris Roderick?
Yeah, I put up Microsoft Stream there because when we were doing recordings on Zoom, because we were based on Microsoft stuff at Dawson College, we were encouraged to use Streams because it's hosted here, or at least it's hosted in Canada, at least if not on campus, just for privacy concerns and also access. But the access was horrible because it's behind, the student has to log in, but then they have to navigate the streams. And once they're on streams, finding the content is, it was unusable. It had some good elements in terms of the upload time was fast. It did automatic transcripts for closed captioning, although the quality was iffy. And just the fact that it was integrated, but just it wasn't transparent enough for my students to get good use out of it.
Okay, good. Mike, your hand is up. Is that still raised from before?
No, it was just in response to Roderick, and it's one of those. I use Streams sort of by accident, in that we were using Teams and recording the Teams meeting automatically brought in Stream, and I'd say one of the, so I had Streams in the green for me because it was very easy to use, because we were already using Teams and that, the login issues just weren't present. So
okay, well, I'm hoping to move to Teams in the fall, so hopefully that'll remove that barrier.
Yes, there may be a contextual issue there, but definitely if that's the only sort of Office 365 thing you're using, it's definitely would be a bigger pain than say YouTube or something. Right?
Yeah, well, thanks for giving me some hope, Mike. I'm feeling better now.
Any other questions or comments about any of the things on the screen before we scroll over to the reds?
Maybe I'm just wondering why someone put Khan Academy in the yellow.
That was me. I put it there because it's typically, I mean, I've used it in K-12, right? And they do go up the spectrum to some, things that would be appropriate in upper secondary or even, stage up level, but they're very structured. So they have their own ideas about how to, the software is good. It's drill and kill, it's practice based. I think the videos are not great that they put together. They're I guess, they're not horrible. It's yellow. It's yellow. You're going to use them selectively. You're going to find things that work for you. You know, like,
Is it just that it's not modular enough to be plunked into other contexts?
I think it's more that it's pick and choose. It's gonna be hit or miss. It's gonna be, you know, you're gonna have to commit to that platform if you're gonna really use it. Kids get an account and they have to go in, and they're using it in Toronto Public Board. So I've had some experiences there, but I've also had some secondary level people using it. I just think there's good stuff in there, but it's hit or miss, and you got to go picking through it to find. So when you find ones that are really good, then as drill and kill, practice, problem solving, technology enabled, they're sharp. The stuff works. So, oh, and I guess for that matter, we should put some other cool things like GeoGebra and some of these kind of representational things up there that are more open-ended mind tool type stuff.
So just going down to the things that are in red, there are a bunch of things there. Interesting that Teams is there. So Teams, I know, is something that we have at Dawson, but that hasn't been, it wasn't chosen as our primary source for online teaching. But some people have been learning about Teams, and it seems to have some promise. So is it maybe someone who talked about or who put Teams there and put it in red could highlight what it is about Teams to warn us away from it, or to have someone add in how it can be used differently so that it becomes a yellow or a green? Someone who used Teams, or people who put Teams up, someone who put Teams up in red, can they comment?
I didn't put it in red. I think I put it in yellow, but it's a Microsoft product, you know, like, is that enough for you? It's everything or nothing. You're going to use it. It's going to solve all your problems. It's a one-stop everything. Everything's integrated. You better love SharePoint. You better love Outlook. You better love 360. You better love all these. It doesn't play well with Google Drive. My experience of it is that it's flaky. You know, for some reason, somebody can't see the same stuff I'm seeing, but I'm sitting here in a Zoom meeting with them right now, sharing screen. SharePoint sucks. Also, that permission levels, like the whole thing is just such a Death Star of design, and they build great videos to sell it. And you know, the people that are using it that I know, like engineers, they love it. So I'm gonna give them some credit. It must not suck as bad as I'm saying, but my personal experience, we're trying to use it in my research group this year because we realized that Google Drive was not doing it for us completely. We needed some more project management methods, so we set up Teams, and we're trying to use it, and so far, no good.
Okay. I see Liz with her hand up.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is now an appropriate time to start asking ourselves that question about the types of software that we use. Is that shaping us? So I that's a big question for me when it comes to educational technologies. No, there's always that notion that the tool shapes the user shapes the tool a little bit, but the tool is doing a big job of shaping the user. So Jim's point about Teams is one of the points that I have about all technologies that are not designed for learning or for learning and instruction. What are they doing to us, and what are they doing to our students when we want them to learn?
So I think that's a great point, Liz. And one of the quotes that came up at one of our Dawson Active Learning Fellows meetings was, pedagogy is the driver and technology is the accelerator. And sometimes we flip that around, right? We put the pedagogy ahead, the technology ahead of the pedagogy. Is that what you mean? A discussion around how is it shaping what we're doing, and how do we put pedagogy back in the driver's seat?
Yeah, sort of, you know, yes, and maybe for us to ruminate a little bit to say, what if we did choose teams? What would it do to our pedagogy? What would it do? You know, will the tool, you know, some of the limitations that Jim just mentioned, will it shape what we do? So, for example, Zoom has already shaped how I engage in video conferencing. You know, I know what I can and can't do, and so for instance, something that we used to do back in the old days when we were face to face, we would look around the room. Those of us who were in active learning classrooms, we would look around the room and we'd be able to see in one fell swoop what our students were doing, because they were these beautiful boards that people would write on. Now they're boards in a Zoom meeting, but those boards are now hidden in breakout rooms if they're working in groups. And I no longer can see what my students are doing in those breakout rooms. And it's very frustrating because I have to enter the room, which means that I break the momentum of whatever is happening. So it's shaping how I interact. So I'm sort of asking it broadly from that point of view, like, you know, like let's you know, do a thought experiment. What might education look like if some of these tools did become the prominent tools?
So can I suggest that we take that discussion into some breakout rooms? Because I think that's the kind of, you know, we are right now 60 participants, and it's hard to have a conversation amongst 60 of us. So if I create 6 breakout rooms, 10 people per breakout room, could we take 10 minutes to talk about what Liz is raising?
Okay, I'll have to do that, Chris, because I'm the host.
Can you do that?
So you said six rooms?
I think so.
Okay.
We'll give you 10 to 15 minutes. I'll drop in on a couple of the breakout rooms to see how things are going if I can. Otherwise, it'll have to be Sue dropping in. But we could, we'll see how things are going. And first of all, do a quick introduction of your name, where you're from, what you teach, or what you're interested in, and then have a conversation about the technology, pedagogy, dance, the what leads to what, how does one shape the other, like chicken and the egg conversation, isn't it? Is that clear? Is that good?
Okay, so I gave you 10 minutes. I'm gonna move you automatically to the breakout rooms. And that's it.
Random assignments, yep, that's good.
Are we good to go?
Yeah.
Are breakout rooms separately recorded, or are they recorded as part of a master thing, or are they just not recorded?
I don't think they're recorded. The chats can be. The chats belong to the breakout rooms and not, it's a bit weird actually, the chat, sometimes you can see things.
Yeah, I was just curious, and you know, if you know, I've not used that feature in Zoom.
Yeah, I think it's the host's feed. Whatever the host is looking at is what's recorded.
Okay. So you may be recorded, you may not be recorded. You won't know, I guess, unless the host is there. So isn't this the 71st anniversary of George Orwell's 1984? I guess we're living it. All right, let's go to breakout rooms rather than start a whole different conversation.
One second.
Just one note, we will give you a 60-second timer when we want to pull you back in, so you have 60 seconds to come back in. Be careful, there are buttons, there are 3 buttons if I remember correctly. One is leave breakout room or leave room, and one is leave meeting. If you leave the meeting, you leave the whole meeting. You won't get back to the large group, so you just want to hit and leave room. unless
Yeah,
you
be
can,
very careful because they're right next to each other.
yes.
Okay,
You can always come back in, but it's a bit, yeah.
let's go.
Yep.
Hi, Sonia. Hi, Ellen.
Yeah, sorry, I have to step out for a minute. I'll be back in a
Okay.
bit.
Okay, I just thought it didn't work. Okay.
No, I just need to step out for a bit. Thank you.
Hi, Rebecca. Hi, Jean-Francois.
Hi, Sue. How are you?
Good, and you?
Not bad.
Did I assign you to one of the breakout rooms?
What's going on? I
Oh,
was in
you
another
just.
meeting. I just arrived.
Oh, okay. So they are pretty much discussing the tools and platforms and stuff like that in different breakout rooms. So I can assign you to one of them.
Sure. Choose the best, please.
Okay. Let me see which one you deserve. Okay.
You'll put me alone, right?
No, I'm gonna put you with Liz.
Hi, Sue. I was just troubleshooting actually for one of my colleagues. I couldn't remember how I signed in to get in. And I just happened to pop in at this moment.
Yeah, are you talking about
Joanne? Yeah.
I have no idea what's going on.
Well, I think she doesn't have a Zoom account. So I think I had to log in with my Zoom.
Well, but eventually I told her, try to log in and try to, I mean, in principle, you don't really need a Zoom account, but if it's asking, just sign up and.
That's it. I told her to contact, or I'm just in the process of emailing her. I just wanted to try again.
Yeah, and then, yeah, and she said that Patty Kingsmill is here, and now you are here as well. And she tried both several times, both emails. I don't know, because I'm not a Zoom expert. I mean, I know what the basics. So.
Anyway, thanks, Sue. I'm going to get back to Joanne, and I'll be sending out the email with your form, your Microsoft form feedback.
Great. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Sue. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Miriam. Hello. Oh, we're in a breakout room?
Yep. I mean, they have 1 minute left, so it's not worthy for you to go to the breakout rooms now. Yeah, I don't know if you ever saw that this kind of message. Someone was trying to log into the Zoom meeting, and she tried with her Vania email, her personal email. Of course, she tried to use the link we sent out with the password, everything. Huh?
There's no need to log in because.
Yeah, I know.
They just have to put in, like, they open Zoom, they put in the meeting ID, and then they put in the password for that meeting, and then that's it.
Yeah,
There's
I
no
know.
logging in per se.
So yeah, and two colleagues of her said that, well, they were able to join us, and they think you need to have a Zoom account or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, it would depend on how the original invitation was set. I think a Zoom account is not necessary.
Oh.
But
Yeah, I'll
I
have that.
wouldn't know unless I saw like the settings of the invitation.
I'll have to check that with Liz, because I mean, pretty much everyone was able to join us except for that person. So I don't know. Oh, people are coming back. Can we extend the time, Miriam, you know? Because I don't see any option here to extend the time.
You just keep going. You don't have to. Oh, you mean
No, I
extend the
gave them 10 minutes.
Ah, for the breakout room.
Yeah, and I don't see any option here to.
That I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, there's no option here. No.
You'd have to like redo another breakout room, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I tried to extend the time, but it's not possible.
Oh, wow. Or everyone's back.
We got through introductions.
Oh.
See, I told you technology pushes on you. Yeah. It shapes what you do.
So this is you're saying this was a deliberate attempt to illustrate the constraints of technology, forcing a particular. Yeah, great.
I've forgotten how evil you are, Liz.
Gee, now you're all upside down. No, wait a minute. Just me.
You were talking team. That's an interesting feature. I notice two of my colleagues always show up either sideways or upside down, and seems to be a persistent issue with it.
They're on their iPads or their phones. So what's the, do we report back? We didn't get very much time to move into anything, but it was nice to be a small group.
Well, we started talking about the words that came up were fluidity and flexibility, I think was the word that Chris used. When we talk about systems like platforms like Teams, as a for instance. So is that one of the features of technology that, you know, the technologies we've been using have been pretty chopped up, and therefore the students, what did you say, Claudio? You were using a word. They felt
friction.
There was a lot of friction. So is that something that people can resonate with, that the technologies so far are creating friction because they don't consolidate, they don't move students fluidly between parts of the applications that we want them to use? Is that the push that's happening?
Just jump in if, oh, hang on, Captain Proton, is your hand up from before, or?
No, I have a lot to say. Just actually on that point, you know, as we talk about Teams, if there was anything, it's the over integration of Teams that drove me up the wall a little bit. In that, it's integrated with OneDrive, is integrated with SharePoint, is integrated. There are about 17 different ways to do the obvious thing, but they all involve sort of these multiple steps. Whereas it would be easy if it just did the Zoom meeting and I can handle uploading the file myself. I don't need it in my OneDrive and then find it. And oh, you can't, so you've already put it in, and it's in the channel, it's in the main channel, not in the breakout room channel. So now you've got to provide extra links and that. And that provided a lot of friction for both me and the students. And that would be one of, I could see the integration being a way of smoothing the friction, but it doesn't always work that way. And I would say that would be my biggest criticism of Teams. So
yeah, it's always a a continuum, right? Any extreme, the extremes of the continuum are often problematic, and it's that sweet spot in the middle. Now, in terms of what you want to do, we have 26 minutes left. Should we go back to the breakout rooms and have conversations at that scale? We could change to different breakout rooms and go to a different conversation, or we can go back to the same breakout rooms, or we can just stay here. So if I can get you in the participants to click yes or no if you'd like to go back to the breakout rooms for a discussion.
Jim wants to say something.
I guess we can let Jim say something. Hey, Jim.
I did have my hand up, didn't I? You know what I was going to say? It was about that rigidity, and that there's a spectrum that David Jonason, if you know him, he passed away about 5, maybe more years ago, but he was one of these kind of early leaders in thinking about technology. And his famous book is called Mind Tools. And he was an advocate of tools that were open-ended, that allowed for flexible use, like a concept map, right? Or a drawing tool. These are basically nothing but pen and paper. Or Word, or Google Doc, that's a mind tool. Whereas something like Khan Academy is extremely nuanced and hard designed down to the micro interactions that it's expecting. And so that doesn't mean that one's bad or the other's good, but as educators trying to use stuff, sometimes for active learning, I think it's easier to get these kind of mind tools, even a tool like Padlet or whatnot. But within that space, I also want to say there's work by Scardamelia and Breakout that happened that, they tried to talk about why they built their tool, Knowledge Forum, the way they did. And I think Daylight could probably argue the same thing, and my group could argue the same thing. We have tools that we're making that at some level, you have this concept of a bespoke technology, which means to say it's a technology built to fit very specifically a certain model or way of learning, a certain pedagogical model, and that comes about because you can't find a technology, even a mind tool kind of technology, that does exactly what you want. I think Daylight found themselves in that position. My group, builds that way. So when you get a bespoke technology like that, you basically are in trouble if you try to use it outside of its intended pedagogy. And that's something that I've found in the field a couple of times when we've tried to migrate our tools out of research, where they were developed for a particular kind of pedagogical flow, making knowledge, collective and visible. And then somebody wants to use it for a different way, or they don't quite get the way that you were thinking about it. So those are all kind of variables that are in this mix. And my guess is that for active learning in a community like SALTISE, the best tools are going to be things like, that are built to be used in a wide range of ways. Zoom, Padlet, Nearpod, and that sort of thing. That's my comment on technology.
Thanks, Jim. So I am, while Jim was talking, I started uploading screenshots of that canvas that we were working on with all the different technologies. So the green labeled, the yellow labeled. So if you want to have a copy of just a screenshot of that, I've put the first one in the chat. I'll put the other ones in the chat as we go forward. I guess the question is, in the last 20 minutes, what would everybody like to do? Do we want to continue with this large conversation, or do we want to go back into some breakout rooms to do some exchanging between groups? So if you'd like to stay in this large group, please check a yes. If you'd like to go back into the breakout rooms, check no. So again, you go into the participants list, and you, so yes is to stay in the large group, no is to go to the smaller groups. Just if you can populate that, I'll upload the other files now.
Chris, would it be possible to keep the large conversation going, and then for those who want breakout rooms to make a breakout?
We can individually assign people to different breakout rooms. So, you know, we could create a breakout room for a large group, and then, but that, I think it's going to take more time than we really, you know, we're going to spend 5 minutes doing that, and then, so I'm seeing, I mean, in the participation list, I've got many more green checks than I have red X's. So I think that's a vote to stay here. So let's just stay here, and if you have a question or if you want to make a comment, I'd love to hear from some other voices right now.
Actually, Marisa has a nice question. She put in the chat. Is anyone using technology that they find particularly adapted for UDL?
Universal design for learning. Good question.
If I may just elaborate on that. So I work, I'm an adult educator in the community sector, and we're now having to use technology to do a lot of formal learning, a lot of informal learning. We're finding that we're using a lot of Zoom, and we have not only a lot of learner variability, but we have age variability, a lot of socioeconomic variability, a lot of factors entering into the effectiveness with which learning happens. And I was wondering if anybody had encountered any technology that's particularly suited to applying with the UDL framework. Now, I know most technology will lend itself to that because it's can be flexible, but if anybody has any comments about that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
You've got Chow and Stephen Cohen. I don't know if either of them were going to respond to Marissa.
So Chow, no. What about Steve? I just see you shaking your head. What about Stephen?
No.
Or you know? Okay. Before we go on to something different than Marissa, one of the things that we do have at Dawson, so Dawson has seen a flurry of these professional learning communities develop, and one of them is a UDL community. Are you at that? Are you part of that? Do you
I'm familiar with it, but it's a the last time I checked, it's a closed group for post-secondary, and most of the adult education activities that we conduct are in small nonprofits and grassroots organizations.
Maybe if you email me, cwhittaker@dawsoncollege.qc.ca. So Chris, C. Whittaker at dawsoncollege.qc.ca. I'll make sure to put you in touch with the UDL folks. And in fact, Kathy Roy is here. She's one of our fellows in the active learning group, but she's also been involved with the UDL. So she might be able to connect with you directly.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. So let's go to back to Chow and then to Stephen. Do you still have stuff? Chow, do you want to go?
I guess, Stephen, if you want to go first, I guess I might just a little bit comment in terms like maybe also bring into the future what we can do. Stephen, do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I think, you know, we're obviously going to have a lot of challenges next semester, but I think the first challenge we're all going to have is making a connection with the new cohort. That's not a challenge we had this semester because we already knew them. So, because until you do that, they don't really trust you. Until they trust you, they don't really follow along with you. So, yeah, it's one thing to make a connection when you're actually there, and another, it's a bigger challenge to do it when you're not. So I was wondering if anyone gave any thought to that.
Yeah, I'll jump in. One of the things, so that the span canvas that we started playing with at the beginning, we did a workshop on that last week. I can't, the weeks are all starting to blur together. But we did a workshop with the active learning group at Dawson about that, and we came up with what I think could be a really neat idea of using it as initially as a get to know you game, but then bringing in the content matter. And Catherine Braithwaite is here. We came up with this idea of a scrapbook, a class scrapbook that would start with, you know, more personal things, like this is where I went to high school, this is for us at CEGEP, this is what my hobbies are, this is why I'm taking this course. But then you know, transition that as an artifact that lasted through the whole semester, so that students would start to then bring in things about, Catherine teaches history, so she was thinking about, well, we need to have people start to bring in, you know, what period in history they're most particularly interested in, and then have, because that canvas is accessible to everybody, so when you use the full potential of the canvases, students can go into the canvas at different times and add things and see things and put notes on each other's postings. And so you could have this growing scrapbook over the semester that would allow students to initially meet each other, but then start to, you know, identify things that interested them personally around the course, and then see what each other is doing and see what each other is interested in. And if they have some common interests, they can start to post notes to each other, and you could then leverage that for classroom activities. So something like, you know, a get to know you game that transitioned into a discipline specific scrapbook was one idea that we were really excited about last week. I don't know, Catherine, if you want to add anything to that.
I was just writing a comment basically saying that, yeah, we got so excited last week when we were talking about this, because what started as Chris was saying, simply a little, who are you? You know, give me your name, your favorite flavor of ice cream, dog, cat, you know, that kind of stuff. And then doing an element of exchange. The beauty of it on SPAN is because it is one long canvas, as you saw in the beginning. So the students can just scroll through it and they can see each other. You can plan some sort of activity where they have to go find somebody else who's a bird lover or who has a fish, or, you know, and do activities of that nature in the first class, exactly to build that trust and knowledge that Stephen was talking about. And then I was getting all excited when we were developing this, and I was into like a history scrapbook. And scrapbook is a really touchy word. I once used it with a classroom of mine because I do scrapbooking. And that's like my big secret I shared with classes. And they all were like, oh my God, miss, you know, that's something like old ladies do. So I think I have to think about the wording, album, or I'm not sure, artifact, something classier.
Market it.
Pardon me?
You have to market it well. We have to have a strategy for marketing.
Yeah, we'll have to think about wording because semantics does count here. But the idea of growing this for me, like making it segue into history generally, then you know, directing it completely into the activity that we're doing, the topic, the module that I'm looking at, what's the theme of this week. And that ultimately, yes, individually, each student will have a scrapbook, for lack of a better word, that's going to show who they are all the way into their interests, etc. And then part of the challenge beyond this is to think about how to have the students work off of each other's, do some assessments. Oh, you like this period in history. Have you thought about this? What about that? Let's get a bit more critical. And I definitely am going to run with that idea. I had the summer to think about it, but it was really exciting, at least in our world. And just to finish off, Narita Span was an excellent tool to use with it. And I know myself that that's probably the tool, the platform I'm going to try to focus on, to avoid as much as possible too much back and forth between 6 different digital platforms per class.
So some of the nice things about the SPAN canvas is that it's a non-linear medium, meaning that you can jump in and out of it wherever you'd like. You don't have to start at the beginning and work your way down. You can also post videos, articles, links, so you can open up PowerPoints and interactively, so you can have students starting to work on their projects in that form and posting their presentations so that each other could go and look through their presentations asynchronously and leave comments. So you could really, I think that the trick for us as teachers is to get them to a point where they're intrinsically motivated. You're bringing out that intrinsic motivation. And so being able to give them space to get to know each other a little bit, but then start linking it to the content of the course and the learning outcomes that you want to achieve is something that is powerful. And you can do it in many other, you know, a Google Doc, a shared docs, but it's nice that SPAN is non-linear. If people are interested in SPAN, Dawson has a site license. We have some licenses that we could sign some people up in a limited fashion for a short time, but you can get a free 1-month trial, and there's lots of good videos online. Just Google search Nareva SPAN, S-P-A-N, not spam as in spam, 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 spam.
Chris?
Yes.
Carolyn has had, Carolyn Big
Good. Yep.
has had her hand up for a while.
It's just a question. Did you have any abuse of this? Like, or do you perceive that there might be somebody posting something, or is it identified with each of the students, or?
So it is in the background data. So there's a back end, so you can export like a data file that shows you who exactly posted what. And a number of us have been using it for, at Dawson for a while, creating some really amazing collective artifacts of knowledge by classes, by groups. You know, we have one teacher using it for, she teaches sustainability, and so she gives each student group of 5 or 6 students a different neighborhood in Montreal. They then upload maps, information about the neighborhood. They then build a sustainability plan for that neighborhood. They then go to the site of the township or the city and upload the official sustainability plan. They contrast and compare it with their own. They then make a community walk for each other, and they go walking through each other's communities based on that kind of a collective artifact. So it's nice that it's something that the whole class can share, and yet, you know, groups can focus on little bits and pieces. And no, up to this point, we haven't had anybody do anything inappropriate, and there are ways of checking if they do.
Thank you.
Yes, Liz.
Jim wants to say something, and I'm going to be the time manager. We have 9 minutes left, but I also think we've got we're just starting to get going on this topic, so we may want to find another day. But Jim, go ahead.
I want to raise the challenge about creating a narrative. If you get a tool like SPAN that offers what we call the affordance, which basically means it has the capacity to support what Chris described as, you know, generating collective knowledge artifacts, whatever that means for you and your topic. Can mean very different things in different disciplines. I've been working with a guy in Illinois named Tom Moore, who's a computer scientist, and we've been trying to talk about what it is that we're missing when we're taken out of our element like this. We're pushed into suddenly solving these problems for online when we're used to teaching face-to-face, even if the face-to-face is a deprecated, you know, lecture oriented, and we're trying to get better at doing active learning, but it's, you know, normal teaching and learning. We have all this stuff that we get in that context for free. We're in the same room. We have the same air, right? And we have, and it's all taken for granted. So you know, we're all sitting out here at home right now wondering what it is actually that's missing, right? And one of the things that's missing is this shared air, this shared context, and this shared narrative. And so I think one of the challenges for us moving into, even if this is a temporary mode of trying to build online active learning, is to create that narrative and to give, and maybe these kind of openers that Monica suggested, or these treasure hunts or something, is to give everyone a common story that they're sharing, and not just feel like you're accessing the activity and doing it, but actually building something that lets us all experience and feel that we're in this together. That's a real powerful thing, and I think it's important to have that, to articulate that as the goal, that we need a narrative that defines the activity and that helps define the community, and that's a really powerful way to make sure that learning stays active.
I'm just going to jump in, Chris, because I also was feeling that, you know, sort of building off of Stephen's question, I was asking myself that very same question that Jim is addressing, which is, what is it that makes that connection? You know, like we all feel that we connect to our students, but what is it that's making us feel that? And I think you've hit it on the head, Jim. There's something about the space. It feels like we feel, you know, like even this kind of weird environment that we're in right now feels better when we have something to write together, like the chat. You know, we see each other. And if we didn't have that, it would be ephemeral. You know, it wouldn't have any sense of permanence that that we existed almost. I think that to me would be the tools that we need. You know, it's, you know, sort of going back to where Chris started with this technology. To me, a tool that was designed so that we can get that sense of a narrative, get a sense of the moment, get a sense of the space that we're in, that it is a common space. That would be a beautiful tool.
Agreed. Just in the chat, Stephen, you were asking, is Nareva span free? It's not. We have Dawson has an agreement with Nareva. We've worked with them in the past, and we have a room that features some of their technologies. But you can get a 1 month free trial, and then if you did want to pursue that, we could always you know, introduce you to the contacts we have at Nareva. They've changed their formatting, but it's not free, unfortunately. Any other comment? I mean, we've got 4 minutes left. And one of the things I'd like to be able to do is again, I put up the screen captures from the artifact that we created at the beginning of the meeting, but I'd like to think about how we could continue this. I mean, there are some connections, you know, Marissa, I need to get you to talk to Kathy Roy and to some of the people at Dawson. Stephen, we might want to continue a conversation about SPAN, but
Maureen has a hand up.
I guess before getting to that is just, if you do have follow-up questions, if you do want to know who was it that was talking about this, and please get in touch with us, either at me at Dawson or the SALTISE team, and we'll try and keep the conversations going as much